So for those of you who come regularly, just going off into left field today from our usual, it's kind of a joke, really not left field, but it's just something that we've been focusing on. So this is a poem. It's really not a poem, it's a teaching from this somewhat modern-day Tibetan master by the name of Mipham. And in the glossary, it says a little about Mipham. Mipham Rinpoche, he lived in eastern Tibet from 1846 to 1912. So actually, in this current of the Tibetan diaspora, there were a few of the older lamas who came out of Tibet who actually knew and had met Lama Mipham in their childhood, in his adulthood. Because again, he lived through 1912. So somebody who's 104 or 5 could have encountered him today. So he's from eastern Tibet. He displayed exceptional talents very early on, memorizing whole books at the age of 6. So those of you who think you have intelligent children, and became a renowned author at the age of 10. So that's the way they used to make them in the old days. He spent years in meditation retreat and showed many signs of realization. He composed brilliant treatises and commentaries on the philosophy and practices of his tradition, Buddhist tradition, many subjects. His knowledge was wide-ranging and wrote on topics as diverse as medicine, painting, astrology, grammar, and poetics. His complete works fill 30 volumes. And they did it by hand. He wrote it by hand. So this is one of the things he wrote. It begins, homage to the precious master Manjusri. This is very traditional to pay homage. Manjusri is this bodhisattva, so-called, of wisdom. Right. Great wisdom. So he pays homage. He says, happiness and suffering depend upon the mind. We may suffer at the death of one we call, quote-unquote, son, daughter. We may rejoice at the death of one we call, quote-unquote, enemy. Yet suffering and joy do not belong to external objects. Okay. So this is something that sounds very simple, but is fundamental. It is hard for us to get that our happiness and suffering is all arising within our minds. And the loss of that which we may call son and daughter, these example uses, or the happiness when something negative befalls, quote unquote, somebody we don't like or our enemy, right? The happiness or the suffering is not because of them. It's not because of external situations. That happiness, right, is arising because of our own mind and our own perceptions, our own likes and dislikes, right? That person that we call son, that we're so heartbroken when they die, may have an enemy. And in that enemy's mind, when that son dies, they rejoice. Well, that's interesting. How can the same object produce such opposite emotional responses? How can that be? Because that response to that fact of somebody dying, that response is occurring within our mind and nowhere else. That's important to understand. Because many of us live our life believing our emotional life is dependent on I mean, certainly a lot can be said about that. But just to begin to get the general idea. Yet suffering and joy do not belong to external objects. And he chooses objects such as a son or a daughter, somebody we love, objects such as a person we hate or dislike, things that really get us, right? Because so much of our emotionality is about our attachments and our aversions to people. So much of our emotional up and down is about what's happening in these people's lives. And yet, in truth, what's happening in everyone's life is just happening. Those are just facts. And the emotional response that's arising is arising within us only. Very powerful. Right? In a very different way than we look at it. We'll have an opportunity in the end to discuss this. Those who cherish their body protect it. Those who are not attached are willing to offer it. Those who have no patience with themselves and others are irritated by a simple thorn. The sage who holds on to nothing has no fear, even of hellfire. So he says, those who cherish their body protect it. Those who are not attached are willing to offer it. Now, those who are not attached are willing to offer it may sound kind of extreme, right? And yet, we know there are certain professions, police, firemen, soldiers, others, right? Who what? Who are willing to offer their bodies, right now, today, in their professions. Willing to offer their body. Medical professionals who go into areas where there are, dangers of contagious disease. In a sense, are willing to offer their bodies to benefit another. Most of us, we see our bodies as something to hold on to. We're afraid to offer it, to let go, to put it in any kind of danger, take a risk with it. Because we so identify or are concerned with it. We don't see it as an instrument, something to be taken care of, but also something to be used. And we may say again that, people who choose to enter professions are not the norm. Most people don't choose to enter those professions where there is a physical danger. And yet we know ordinary people put their bodies in danger to protect their loved ones, right? Parent might run out into the street to grab their child even as the car is coming. Somebody may run into a burning house to rescue somebody. People do that all the time, actually, just very spontaneously, right? So that's interesting, that it isn't, it's a profession, but it's also very spontaneous, that maybe even people in this room have seen at times their usual fears or attachments to their bodies have disappeared in some situation when they were willing, to try to help another, willing to put ourselves in danger. I mean, actually, people put themselves in danger all the time over kind of silly things, right? Like what? like all kinds of extreme sports, like downhill skiing, like driving. Wow. Anybody know what the statistics are in driving of getting hurt? Good chance, isn't it? Anybody here ever, their body ever been hurt in a car accident? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anybody know anybody whose body's been hurt in a car accident? So, we think about it, we are willing to put our bodies in danger for certain things. We don't like to think about it. So it is not unknown that to achieve certain ends, we are willing to let go of our extreme caution and self-protectiveness about our bodies. The less attached we are to it, the easier that is. Those who have no patience with themselves and others are irritated by a simple thorn. If our modus operandi in the world is we have a great difficulty accepting things as they are, people as they are, myself as I am, right? If that's our basic modus operandi in the world, then we find even the smallest thing can irritate us. The smallest thing that doesn't go right. The smallest person that's not acting the way we want them to act, treating us the way we want to be treated, saying what we want them to say, right? We can be irritated by people we don't know, that we just observe. Right? Doesn't even have to be happening to us. I mean, that's how highly strung many of us are in terms of our have no patience with ourselves and others. Right? We want the whole world to act the way we want them to act, right? We can just turn on the news and go, I can't believe this, and can you believe that? They said this, and then, right? We're just impatient, irritated. Are we not? No. And we think it's because of them. No, the irritation, the frustration, the anger is in ourselves. And we're projecting it out into the world, onto other people. And they don't even know it. They're fine. We're the ones who are what? A little bent out of shape, causing ourselves suffering. Mindfulness reveals what's going on within us. But the sage who holds on to nothing has no fear of even hellfire. Obviously hellfire is just a kind of example, meaning what? The truly wise person understands everything is what it is, right? It can be totally present in situations that are of ease, of happiness, right? Goodness, pleasure. But when they're in situations of difficulty, they can also be at ease. They can also be present. They can also be wise and compassionate, right? We're talking about wise men and women, sages, people who have understanding, who see clearly. All of us have that capacity. If you have that capacity, you're not afraid. Ooh, I don't want to be around those kinds of people. Ooh, I don't want that ever to happen to me. I mean, so many people, they live their life in chronic anxiety, in fear of what's could happen, because they think, what? I couldn't deal with that. Right? Isn't that what anxiety is about? Afraid something's going to happen, and I can't deal with it, or I don't want to deal with it. What if you were not like that? If you knew that whatever arose, you could deal with. If it turned out the way you wanted, I could deal with that. If it turns out just the complete opposite of the way I want, I could deal with that. I could deal with anything. And again, it's not because I'm on medication. It's because the sage has understanding and has mindfulness and has inner certainty and inner peace of mind. And their happiness and unhappiness and calmness and lack of calmness is not predicated on how things are going in the external world. He then says, everything depends on the mind, which in turn obeys the thoughts that come from its own habits. Thus it is buffeted by endless myriads of concepts, pleasures, and suffering. Let me just, anyhow, is that clear? So, I mean, I'm not saying is it clear to you like you kind of get it totally, but I mean just intellectually. Is that clear? Everything depends on the mind. And here talking about this mind of thoughts, perceptions, ideas, beliefs, memories, all the things that arise in your mind and the way you perceive the world and digest the world. Right? Which then produces your emotions, which then produces the way you act and the way you speak. All that is churning in your own mind, driven by our habit energy, the way we've always thought and acted and spoke, and endlessly buffeted by myriads of concepts, pleasures, sufferings. Can everybody know what we're talking about? We're just kind of, it's like ping pong, endlessly up and down, back and forth. Sometimes the ball is on the table, sometimes the ball is off the table, sometimes the ball is way off the table and we have to go really far to get it, Sometimes it's in the net, it's like boom, 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 boom. Right? Sometimes a shot is good. When a shot is good, what? Feeling good. Right? Missed a shot, feeling bad. Have to endlessly chase after the ball, getting tired. That's the way most people live their life. Most of us live our life. Endlessly buffeted around by all our thoughts and our, etc., feelings, emotions. Buffeted means what? There's no ease in that, is it? We're being buffeted. Pushed. We don't feel that we are the so-called captain of our ship. We don't feel that we're in the driver's seat of our life. We don't feel that our hand is on the rudder. I mean, you know what I'm talking about, all those metaphors I can use. We're buffeted. We're just slaves to our conditioning, to the rising and passing. We have good thoughts arise and we're happy. We have bad thoughts arise and we're unhappy. We have frustrated thoughts and we get frustrated and happy and unhappy and sad and this. We look at life this way and we think it's wonderful. We look at life this way, we think it's terrible. Right? We look at this person one day, they're the joy of our life. We look at them the next day, they're the bane of our life. One day they're the cause of all our happiness. The next day they're the cause of all our unhappiness. Everybody know what I'm talking about? Right? And even to say that it waits a day may not be true. It could be in 30 minutes. We could turn it around, right? Why is that? What's changed in 30 minutes? Sometimes it's an external event. Sometimes it's not. It's just we change the way we are. A new thought pops up. Right? Buffeted. Right? There's nobody home. Alas, if we observe how this lost mind works, when it is happy, it becomes arrogant and its desires multiply. When it suffers, it loses courage and so much wants to be happy. Okay? I mean, is that kind of clear? It's kind of more the same. Just observe our mind. When it's feeling good, life is good, top of the world. Now I want more. Right? When it's suffering, it gets despairing, it loses courage, it yearns for happiness, grasp at it. Whatever happens to it, this is his ordinary mind, it never takes the path of lasting happiness. So this is kind of bingo. Okay? Now we get a sense, maybe he's saying there is another way. There is another there's something out of this buffeting, this up and down, happiness, unhappiness. There's something he's saying called a path of lasting happiness. Instead, alas, it wanders endlessly in suffering. Next paragraph. Who can count the number of thoughts in just one day, one after another, like ripples on the water? Exhausted with vain concepts of rejection and appropriation, by hopes and fears, it buys its own suffering. So he's really laying it on thick, right? Now, why is he laying it on thick? I mean, is anybody here going, stop, right? Ooh, laying it on too thick, right? Can't he say something nice? Some little encouragement we say, say something nice to me. Why are you laying it on so thick, Mipham Rinpoche? Can't be all that bad, right? There are nice things in life, aren't there? Right? There's love, there's kindness, there's good times with friends, right? There's happy times, there's Pepsi and Coca-Cola. I mean, come on, Mipham, right? Right? Why are you laying it on so thick? Why do you think he is? I mean, is he selling anything? Is he about to now, for $199 you can now get? Is he trying to sell us a book? Is he trying to sell us some kind of DVD program or something of 12 DVDs to make it all right? Why did he write this? Is he selling anything? Is he profiting from what he's saying at all? No. So why do you think he's laying it on so thick? Not even, Anybody have a guess? Yes. Right. Yeah, so exactly. He's trying to kind of wake us up. And we're so deep into it. He's like having to say, you just haven't, just like that. So go, yeah, ooh. He kind of gets us this way, and then he gets us that way. And finally, oh, all right, I give up. Yeah, even the good things don't last. Are just temporary. Yeah, that's true. Even after the good things have passed, then comes the opposite. With gain, there's loss. With happiness, with sadness. With love, there's hate. There's winning and losing. Look at the Olympics. The cameras are all on who? What? The winners. Right? That's who's being interviewed. The winners. But you know what? There are more losers at the Olympics than winners. It's not even close. Sergio's from Brazil, right? I mean, like the amount of winners are tiny compared to the amount of losers. And I'm not even talking about the top 6. What about them? Are they in bliss? No. Why not? But you see, nobody shows them. Wouldn't that be, I mean, who would watch the Olympics if all they do is interview the person who came in 50th? You see, it continues the illusion that everybody's winning. Come on, win, win, win. Right? But they don't show the other side, do they? Why not? So that's why, you see, he's being so heavy. Who can count the number of thoughts in just one day, one after another, like ripples on the water? Exhausted with vain concepts of rejection and appropriation by hopes and fears, it buys its own suffering. This inner conversation that we are powerless to stop goes round and round like a wheel. Its root is the belief in duality. Without it, there would be no mental constructs. Now, this is kind of a deep but very essential aspect of kind of why this all is. And duality means two. Two means the world of separation. I am separate from you. You are separate from me. We are separate from the others. The others are separated from we. I am separated from nature. Nature is separated from... You see what I'm saying? It's all that whole world that we live in. The world of duality, the world of separation. He says, is the cause of our endlessly going around this wheel. Again, this is a subject in our community that we deal with in intensives and retreats. It is the essential, but today it's good to hear that, and it's very positive to say that this sense of separation and disconnection, which causes all this grasping, which causes all this aversion, which causes us to kind of endlessly buffet around, is all because of our mental constructs. What are mental constructs? They're the things that our mind is fabricating. You remember earlier we talked the sadness at the loss of the son, the happiness at the misfortune of the enemy. All of that is arising not because of the person. It could be the same person, but because of the mind. And how does that mind deal with those things? It makes constructs. It calls this one son, it calls this one enemy. Right? But over here, someone is calling your son enemy. Right? And the enemy is somebody's son. Well, that's interesting. I never saw it that way. Everything is relative, we say. These constructs spawn mistaken thoughts. The arrogance of ego arise, and an endless web of thoughts pursuing pleasure and refusing suffering is woven continuously, even into our dreams. Anybody notice that? Their dreams just continue the same stuff. Lots of drama, lots of gain and loss. We have emotions in dreams, happy dreams, sad dreams, scary dreams. Stressful dreams, we're stressed. People love us in dreams. People don't love us in dreams. People are happy to see us in dreams. People are unhappy to see us. I mean, do you know what I'm saying? This is, the drama continues in our dreams. And then his last paragraph says, would I not be better to set down the useless burden of these troubles that no one imposes on me, but I inflict upon myself? So this is what he's asking us. You know, he's laid it on thick. He's gotten our attention. He kind of hinted that there is a path of lasting happiness, but he's not presented that yet, has he? Because he realizes we have to clearly see that the path, first we have to see that the path we are on in life is not that path. Right? How do I know it's not that path? Because my life sounds, some more, some less, some at various times, a lot like what he's describing. Right? It's the buffeted path I'm on, the up and down path I'm on, the path of extreme emotionality. Would it not be better to set down the useless burden of all these troubles that no one imposes on me, but I inflict upon myself? How many of us really accept that? I mean, this is big. I mean, it sounds simple, but think about how we operate throughout the day. I see two young girls here. How old are you? And you're what? 21. Yeah. Now, have you ever thought in growing up that your parents were the cause of your problems? No. Well, I know that. I'm just saying. But I mean, we've all been teenagers, right? I mean, can you see that's normal? We right? God, if I only had different parents, I'd be happy. If only they said this or let me do that, or right? So we think. But please understand, they're all doing it too. Okay? So don't feel, but it's, when you're a teenager, just a little stronger, you're really kind of, but we continue with this same kind of mindset, right? Where we think, that they're to blame, and if only they would change and let me do what I want, then what? What, Sergio?
Yeah.
Then I'll be happy. Until the next time. That's it, because we think that that's the source of our happiness and unhappiness. Controlling and manipulating the world. It's endless. So if you get clear when you're 16 and 21, you'll have a good life. Try to get this one early on. Because your parents, you may leave your parents, but you'll find other people in the world who will continue to irritate you and think, they're the cause. Okay? So it's good to get it early on. Would it not be better to set down the useless burden of these troubles that no one imposes on me, but I inflict upon myself? Any questions or comments about this? I mean, this is big, and again, it doesn't, this is not a talk about the path of happiness, which is what we spend most of our time in this community talking about, but it's important that we also see this side, so we it's like a wake-up call. It's like, if I really step back and look at my life, does that sound like me, the one he describes it? In such unflinching ways, if I'm honest. So are there any questions about that? Anybody disagree with this? I think Mipham must have had a troubled childhood, or maybe he's kind of just an angry, depressive kind of guy and has a really distorted view of things. And so I'm serious. I mean, yes. The whole thing. What? No, I'll do it. His last thing. I mean, would I not be better to set down?
The one you said, does anyone have any questions on? She just wants to formulate the question.
Oh, I just meant about what was shared in his poem and the ways I talked about it, about life, and does anybody have any questions about it? In other words, either in understanding what he's saying, or whether you disagree with it. Maybe he's got, a kind of distorted view of things. It's really not all that bad. mean, don't be shy. Yes.
Like the idea, obviously, of not looking at a person as the enemy. If you're feeling you're in conflict with what is going on. But my question is that when you are in the presence of a dictator, you're not creating a mental construct of this person. Hitler, Mussolini, anyone might want to care for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is hard for us. This is deep Dharma because we don't think this way, and again, we have limited time here, and this today is not about that level of teaching, but it's like this, okay? When you were born, when you were small, before you had language, right? Or even in the earliest days when you had language, or let's say you had no language, you had no constructs at all in your mind, right? Things were just what they are. They just appeared to your eyes, your ears, your sound, you know what I mean? And your kind of attraction, aversion was very simple, just based on, if you were cold, you cried. If you were hungry, you cried. You know what I mean? And right. And if everything was good and you were warm and well fed and people were cooing at you, you were happy, right? So our minds were very. There were no constructions in it. Right? Nothing was constructed, and our responses to things were very immediate. All right. But in the course of development, we learn words. In the beginning, the words are what? Simple. The names of things. Right? Right? Cup. Milk. Mummy. Daddy. Right? So we just learn the names of things. Now in Buddhism, we would say the child is developing a mental construct for that person. Right? It wasn't there before. I mean, if your children call you daddy, that's a construct in their mind about you. I don't call you daddy. Right? I don't have that construct related to you. So, this is how we start constructing, and they become more complicated. As our minds developed, capable of abstract thinking, we start having experiences, it can become quite elaborated. But at the end of the day, we are seeing the world through constructs. Right? Like if your children were here today, at the end of the day, they would not just look around for some adult to go home with. Right? They have constructs about daddy and mommy and home and life right? But all of that is going on where? You don't have a sign on you that says daddy. Other children are not going to go home with you today. I mean, if it was family day or something, right? Because they don't have that construct. Right? Now, even something like dictator is a construct. Right? For you, that construct has a lot of association, which obviously I would imagine is not very positive. Right? But, I mean, you grew up in Italy. Were there not many people at a certain time in history where the construct of dictator was something very positive? What does that tell you? It's all about constructs. Now, ideally, because Buddhism is like the spiritual path has an ethical, and, it's not simply just a wisdom path. There are other, there could be criteria for things like generosity, benevolence, compassion, you know what I mean, qualities of a human being that we support and other ones we don't support. But we have to understand that people are seeing the world through their own constructions. And to acknowledge that when you look through your constructs at that person and go negative, get rid of them, there could be as many people, if not more people, who have a construct of, yes, we need a strong leader. Right? And to understand that kind of lets you know what's really going on. And lets you act in the world in a wise way. Most of us think our constructs about life are what? Are true. Absolute truth. That's why the world's in a mess. See, from a Buddhist point of view, they're all constructs. And at the very least, we need to understand that. If not, we go what? We go to war. Because my construct is better than your construct. Right? My ism is better than your ism. I mean, that's so in Buddhism, it looks at these things in this kind of, it just begins with the human being in the mind. And when people are lost in constructs, I mean, Thich Nhat Hanh, his great poem from the Vietnam War, was, you know what? Thinking they're killing their enemy, they kill their brother. Right? Very powerful. Right? And we know civil war, that kind of thing, right? How can you kill your brother? You can only kill your brother if you cultivate a construct that says enemy. And that construct is not in your brother, is it? The construct is in you. Does that explain what I'm saying?
That's for sure. and there are values that I embrace, and my enemy does not. Just to stay with that concept. But for instance, valuing life itself.
Yeah.
So to offer an opportunity for all to live. And when I see that the enemy is not respecting life of my neighbor, then I'm called to do something.
Yeah, the question is, are you called to do something because of your construct, or are you called to do something because of your heart-mind, which is different? So in Buddhism we give the example of compassion, alleviating the suffering of another, that at its truest level, its non-construct level. I'm not doing this because of a construct of what it means to be a good person or a compassionate person or a good Christian or a good Buddhist. That's all coming from constructs. Okay? Now, constructs are beneficial for people who don't understand a deeper level of awareness. It's good to have, that's called civilization. Right? But if I said to you, if your left elbow, you bang it, what happens? Imagine you just banged your left elbow, it hurts. What does your right hand do? Yeah. Did it have to go through a construct? Did it have to go through a construct? Why not? Think about that. Why not? Why was it just a natural? Yeah, why? I mean, well, yeah, you're onto something. Yeah, I mean, hold on. This is the right, I bang my left elbow. Ooh, but is my right arm hurting? Yeah, connected. Well, don't go body. I mean, don't go science. Go, yeah, you see? Your right arm isn't hurting. It doesn't go, I'm not hurting. I mean, what, do you expect me to go all the way over there? I mean, I'm over here just relaxed, You expect me to go all the way over there and start, no way. You see? Or it's not going, let me see. What would an ethical hand do at this point? Do you see what I'm saying? If this arm and hand was really a good Christian, a good Buddhist, shouldn't it really go over there and, right? You see, it's going through a construct. But the truth is, unless we're really crazy, it just naturally, because as you said, it feels connected. It is connected. Right? So when we experience our interconnection, our interbeing, right, our response does not have to be mediated by constructs. It is more natural and spontaneous. Does that make sense? And so Buddhism, because it has this basic sense in the natural goodness of the mind and beings, right? It really says, positive constructs are helpful to kind of move us in the right direction, but ultimately, we don't even need those to act right in this world, to act compassionately and wisely. But if we don't have that deep understanding of interconnection, then good constructs are good. But it comes from a sense of the natural goodness of the human heart and mind that's been covered over. Okay?
It's not like you're responding to the mental construct. You're responding to experiences, what you see, what you hear. Anyone who is suggesting to report people, I feel that ouch in my elbow, and I want to do something.
Yes, you do, because of your causes and conditions. But there's no ultimate truth in that. I mean, at the same time, we have to be aware that there may be many people who think that those people who come here illegally are causing harm. Right? Ouch. They have a different ouch. Right? So they think there's a different solution. Isn't that true too? See, that's what's so hard if we believe that all our concepts and constructs are true. That doesn't mean that you can't have yours. But you see, when we go, I'm right, they're wrong. I have truth, they don't have truth. That's the world we have. Right? That's why real compassion, real understanding means I'm willing to see it. I'm willing to see my enemy not as the enemy, but just another human being. And let me try to understand why they're looking at the same thing that I'm looking at, but come up with a very different conclusion and way of acting. And whether that's in the realm of politics and immigration and dictators, or whether that's just in the realm of, you and your wife and your kids. It's the same thing, right? Because a parent may look at their kids and go, if they only saw it my way, right? I mean, wouldn't everything be better? Definitely. Unfortunately, you got two children over there who may be going, if they only saw it my way, wouldn't everything be better? You see? Now, if that's accepted, that's kind of, everybody has their own stance, and we have understanding and mutual respect and all that, that difference can be fine, right? You see, but where it breaks down is when? And in family life, it breaks down with what? When what happens? When there's no understanding. There's no willingness to listen to the other person and understand that's the way they see it. It doesn't mean you always say yes to each other, but it means it's always done in this understanding. Right? And that goes on in the family, in relationships, at work, and in the political realm. I mean, they're doing the same thing, right? I mean, nobody has respect for anybody. And everybody thinks everybody else is an idiot. So if we look at our political situation now, and I'm certainly not a supporter of Donald Trump, but the things that people are saying about him and his followers, how does that make them feel? Right? Is that really mutual respect? Is that offering a means for reconciliation and dialogue? Anyhow, something to think about. Something to think about. You know, if children think their parents are idiots, and there are many teenagers who think their parents are complete idiots, right? A lot of nods. And, you know, a lot of parents think their children are complete idiots, right? Who need our total control. But where does that lead, right? Whether that's a family, whether that's a relationship between two people, whether that's a country, whether that's a world, you know, where does that lead? You know, to be right. That is the world of ego. Right? Because if I'm right, then you have to be what? Wrong. Right? Anybody here really enjoy being wrong? See, we say, we like being right. That feels good. But when you have two people who both think they're right and are going to fight about it, argue about it, what happens? Anybody ever do that with their partner? Their husband, their wife, their partner? Anybody ever do that? Friend? Yeah, and what happens? Does that really create a healthy, loving, harmonious relationship? Has that been your experience? Anybody want to say yes? What? We laugh. Why? What? Why do we laugh? It's so obvious when we step back, right? No. So mindfulness. Nice to have Dharma talks, discussion. These are all meaningful things for our life. But again, to just ratchet it back down, you know, when the talk ends, when the sharing of opinion ends, how am I? How is my mind? Is it at peace? Is it tranquil? That's what we need to learn to cultivate. This is the path of happiness, where the calmness and the well-being of mind is something that is under our control. We know that the happy mind and the suffering mind are all going on within us. And if I learn to understand my mind, and if I learn to develop the capacity to work skillfully with my mind, my thoughts, transformation is possible and doable.